assalamu alaikum, Jianu, Pakhair Agale, Ni Hao, Churashume, Washwale, Ohio Gonzaimas, Guten Morgen, Hola, Bonjour, Privyet, Kaifahal, Hale Shumat Chatore, Ahlan Wasalan Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabi Av, and a very amazing good morning to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and are watching World this morning alongside Shahzad Khan on a cold Friday morning over here in Islamabad. Ladies and gentlemen, the weather is just getting colder and colder. And it's not fair, early in the morning when you actually have to get up for your morning show, especially the time is somewhat around 6 a.m. in the morning, on 6:30 a.m. in the morning. And, when you see your kids sleeping in all the comfort you can provide them with blessings from Allah Almighty, and you see your wife sleeping under that warm quilt, you just do not feel like getting out of it. But yes, that's life. And, I think that this is something which we have asked for by ourselves as well, ladies and gentlemen. And it's because of the fact that, for men over here within our own society, if they do not work, they have to go through a lot of different problems. I mean, they have some different kind of pressure from their parents as well, induced onto them. And it's just because of the fact that, when men are working, it's great. And now I think I'm a firm believer that, women should actually work as well, because it's because of the fact that the global population of women is somewhat around 56%. So imagine an economy driven by just 44% of the total population won't really be enough. So I think that everybody needs to play their role. Everybody needs to decide whether what they want to do in life. For some, money is important. For some, work is important. For some, career is important. For some, position is important. So it varies from different walks of life. People from different walks of life have different priorities, but that's how it is. But other than that, it's time to rise and shine, wake and bake, get up and be more focused about what we want to do in life. Because, ladies and gentlemen, people who are sleeping, so we have a saying over here in Urdu, jo sota hai, wo khota hai. So, it's one, in a way we are actually trying to say that people who actually sleep a lot, they lose a lot as well. And the early bird gets the worm. I think that that's the kind of formula I believe in as well. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, it's almost 6 years that we're doing this show, and we've always invited people from different walks of life. We've had world leaders over here on the shows. We've had politicians over on the show as well. We've had actors, we've had singers, musicians, doctors, and whatnot. But today, for the very first time in 6 years, ladies and gentlemen, we are actually proud of talking about failure. And I'm very thankful to my producers. I'm very thankful to my boss that, they kind of gave us this guest, and it's because of the fact that this conversation, I believe, is going to be very inspiring. And it's because of the fact that, ladies and gentlemen, I myself have failed in life. It's not that nobody fails. I mean, and imagine that I actually got 9 marks in my math examination in my first year. So you can pretty much assume that, failure is not that bad, because getting back up after that particular failure is the thing which will make you more stronger. But it does not come that easy. There's a lot of dedication involved. There's a lot of morals involved. There's a lot of motivation involved in it as well. But other than that, that was obviously on the lighter note that I actually kind of flunked in my maths exam in first year. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, I had my own production house. We were working, and we were working in great synergy with my team members. And for the first year, we made a lot of profit. We kind of traveled the world too as well. But other than that, the next year, the following year, we kind of went into losses. And it was just because of the fact that my team kind of tried nicking money off me as well. And one way or the other, I found it out. And then I thought that, since I'm not making any more profit, I did a study, and they told me that for the next 6 months, you can actually try. And then, it won't be very feasible for you to run the business. And this is what I did. So I have a mentor, and not many people kind of are happy with that when I say the name. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vakar Zaka has always been a teacher of mine, even when I got into television. He was the one who actually taught me this formula that if one thing does not work, just scrap it, think of another one. If that does not work, think of another one. If that does not work, think of another one. And I kind of held on to that formula, and it worked for me because, Allah has given us all the similar brains, and we can pretty much think about it as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, for all of those people who do not really accept the failure, I mean, there can be two schools of thoughts over here. They might think that they'll make it one day. But what if there are no chances of making it? What if there's no reality behind making it again and again? So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that for all of those people who succeed in this world, are those people who realize that it's time to move on, or when they face a failure, they get back up, think of a newer idea, or do some minor changes and prosper. So this gentleman whom we have invited over here on the show today, last year in 2019, he started this Fail Festival or Failure Festival 1.0 series as well. He went to different universities. He went to ComSats VA, he went to ComSats Abbottabad, he went to APS, he went to different schools where they were keynote speakers, and they told their own inspirational stories of how they failed and then got back up. And I think that it is so important for our community and for our society to know that failure is not that bad, but getting back up is very important after that particular failure which you have faced. This is something, ladies and gentlemen, which we are actually talking about. And to talk about this, we have the brain behind it, the person who actually conceived this idea, that it will be so amazing to share, the failure stories and then tell them that how were we successful. And to talk about all of this, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very lucky that I've been actually joined by Mr. Sheikh Muhammad Ali, who himself likes him to be introduced as the Wandering Darwish. Other than that, he's an international speaker. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you. And the best part over here is that this is for the very first time in my life that I have heard about a festival which is based on failures. How did this idea come across your mind?
Okay, as you yourself mentioned, this friend of mine, he's from Peshawar. He works for the government there. He called me over to come as a speaker, join him at the Failure Festival.
You yourself are an inspirational speaker as well.
Yes, I am a motivational speaker. I've been doing this for the last 20 years, internationally and locally as well. So I went on the internet to find out as to what the Failure Festival is about. How can you make a festival out of failure? Failure being a taboo in this country. So when I went on the net to find this out as to what this Failure Festival he was talking about, I was really surprised to learn that this gentleman called John Weschler, he started this idea some 20 years back from Indianapolis in the US. He was pretty young then. And what he did was he invited speakers like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Oprah Winfrey, and they would come stand on the podium at the auditoriums and they would talk about their failures and how they bounce back in life. So what I did was I started writing. I thought maybe I would have 3 failures, so I started writing them. And I was surprised when I started writing, and I usually do it on my laptop, the story was not ending, and there were failures after failures after failures. It kept on going. So I was really inspired. I got the kick out of this, and I went to Peshawar and I spoke and bragged about my failures. There were 5 other people who were invited for this show, and we had fun talking about our failures. Failure being a taboo in this part of the world, generally we don't talk about our failures, and we have our own inhibitions. But it is important, especially at our ages, I feel that we need to inspire the younger generation. I see a lot of injustices around. I see a lot of deprivation. There's too much in the news which tells you as to what is going wrong in the country, and positivity we don't find.
That's what news is all about anyways.
But you have to show positivity also too, because people get so depressed. I'm sorry, I call it the idiot box, just like the Americans
that's how people call it.
I went to school in the US, so I'm kind of framed in that old league whereby we don't find time to watch TV because all they give you is negativity. There are positive things happening in this country.
And we are doing it today, early in the morning.
That's precisely why I'm here, and I really loved it when you picked this up and this concept, and that's how it started. And we went to talk to Faisal Mushtaq. He's a good friend at the TMUC in Islamabad. He was kind enough to give us his auditorium. That's where we started. We had our first Failure Festival here. Then we went to Nowshera, APS Nowshera, to Abbottabad ComSats. Thanks to ComSats, I know the directors there, they're friends. I was with HEC for 15 years, so I used those contacts, alhamdulillah. And HEC has given me this platform to go out and speak. I was instrumental in sending some 3,000 plus scholars abroad in 18 countries. I was sent by HEC to 12 countries to go and do these MOUs with them.
Exactly.
And that's the inspiration whereby I was given this platform to go out and speak my heart and speak my mind. And through this Failure Festival, we go out and tell the younger generation that we all fail. All of us are storytellers now. And there's nothing wrong in failing, because if you don't fail, you will not know what success is. Not everybody is born with a silver spoon in his or her mouth.
Exactly.
So there's nothing wrong in failing, but what is important is that you get up, you get back, and you give it, you bounce back, and you give your best shot to it.
That's wonderful, and thank you very much for letting us know that how the idea came across as well, and it's great and it's brilliant. But see, when Sir actually said that it's tabooed and it's stigmatized, the word failure, and I mean there's this one quotation which from Quaid-e-Azam, and that is by Quaid-e-Azam, and he said that failure is a word unknown to me. So for people who've actually drawn inspiration from him, they might have a very different concept. But what I'm going to ask you now is a very different thing, and it might be a little deteriorating from the topic, but I think that it's relevant. So, for somebody, we over here in Pakistan, we think that for somebody who's actually, who went abroad and had their education over there, went to different parts of the country, you just mentioned that HEC sent you in 12 different countries, you were going to school in United States of America. So over here, we be sitting in Pakistan, we think that, for somebody who's got such credentials over the years, it's hard for them to fail. So where did you fail then? And how?
Okay, let me start by the first story, which when I presented myself in the Failure Festival, I was in the top of my class from class 1 till class 5. Then I joined, I'm from Karachi, I've been here for the last 17 and a half years, and I come from an educationist family. My mother is a professor of English. My father worked for Dawn newspaper, he was there for 18 years. So when I joined this BVS Parsi school, it still is one of the best schools in Karachi, and wonderful school. We loved our principal. She would cane us just to make good students out of us and give us moral values and ethical values and everything. And in my class 6, my first class in that particular school, I got 13 in the class. And prior to that, I was, imagine I was number 1. So that was more like a failure to me, because I thought that I was on top of this world, and I was, the best student in my class in the previous school, and here I am with as 13th ranker. And I was really upset about it. And that kept on going for the next classes, to the extent that when I was in class 9th and we had our first SSC exam, the board exam, myself and this class fellow of mine, I won't name him, he's going to kill me, he got 58% and I got 59%. And we actually shamed the school in the board, because the rest were all good students. And our principal called us, both of us. He was the class prefect at that time, and by virtue of my mother being the professor of English, and she knew the principal, so we just got lucky and she did not cane us. But she warned us that she will throw us out of school if we repeat our performance the next year. So we got so scared, and alhamdulillah, both of us, we got 70 and beyond in our next year. So we worked harder, we tried harder.
That's great. But what was keeping you busy in your 9th grade that you actually dropped down to having 59% marks? I think that's something which will be very interesting.
Yes, maybe it was overwhelming to have such good students in my class. And because prior to that, since I was the top ranker in that school, maybe among those kids who were not that good. So I thought maybe, that helped me. But it pushed me harder. It pushed me harder to perform.
That's great. And, it's interesting and it's inspiring to listen to all of this as well. But one way or the other, I think I have a firm belief that failure is necessary for innovation. Because when you're so desperate to get something done for yourself, you kind of push your limits as well. Do you agree to this, that failure is important for innovation?
It is. Unless you don't fail, you will not feel the need of creating something new. We talk about Thomas Edison
Yes.
making the light bulb, but we don't talk about him failing maybe 2000 or 1000 times that he did.
Exactly.
So there are cases, there are so many cases in history whereby people have failed, and then we have this WhatsApp guy lately, you may have seen his clip, and they came from Ukraine. He was really poor. They migrated to himself and his mother migrated to California, and they would feed themselves out of food stamps, and then he selling WhatsApp to Facebook for 19 point some billion dollars.
Exactly.
Yeah. Madonna, we have the case of Madonna.
Oprah.
Madonna
Yes.
was eating out of garbage dumps.
Exactly.
And look where she is. But when I read about these people, I met some of them when I was in the US, they were all perseverant as to achieving something, doing something better in life.
Exactly.
And they all have a story.
So you are even of the mindset that, you know, for innovation, failure is important.
It is very important.
So, okay, so then, sir, I think that for all of those people who are actually watching us today, you know, we're going out in 46 different countries as well, they might be thinking that why not to just focus on success then? You know, why even talk about failure? Because, you know, this is how people feel lately, that, you know, it's that energy, you know, whatever you say, it'll come back to you. You know, this is how things are working these days. This is how people are talking about it, that the kind of energy you're going to disseminate, that's the kind of energy you're going to get back as well. So why not just think positive and just talk about success stories?
It is much easier to talk about your success
Yes.
rather than talking about your failures.
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
like that famous saying that you have to be a man to stand up to your mistakes.
Yep.
So whoever that I have interviewed, whoever that have come to our failure festival so far, and I've already gathered like 20-25 people,
Yes, sir.
they've all failed.
Okay.
They've all failed in their lives, and they have their stories on failure.
All right.
And they were comfortable in talking about failures, because see, not all people are generally successful. Yeah. But all of us are failures. If somebody says that I've never failed in life, I'm sorry, he's a liar. I would not believe that. Yeah. So
That's why I said it in the beginning that, you know,
Yes.
this did happen to me.
So having said that, by the way, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce my three other colleagues. One is Mr. Kashif Khan. He's an associate professor at Iqra University.
Wow.
Mr. Wasim Asrar, he runs his business in Medina and he's winding up coming back. They're both Karachites like
Wow.
myself. Then there's third gentleman, he's a corporate lawyer. Actually, he sits next door, Mr. Visal Khan.
All right.
So when we were driving back, myself and Visal, we were coming back from Peshawar. So we thought maybe we should start this in Islamabad. Why don't we do it there? And that's how all four of us sat together and we started this program. And it was just like at the spur of the moment. I had contacts, they had contacts. All three of them have failed in their projects, in their lives. So we thought that there's nothing wrong in failing. And when we go out, we tell the younger generation, people can't become Bill Gates overnight. They can't become Oprah Winfrey's. They can't become Sajjad Ali, the singer, and Shahzad Roy for that matter.
Exactly.
So they have a story, they have a life, and what is important for us when we go out and tell the younger people is we all have our own separate journeys.
Exactly.
We don't need to copy others. We don't need to imitate others. Live your life, live your dream, live your passion, give your best shot.
Yep.
And God gives you those opportunities in life to
Exactly.
succeed one way or the other. Opportunity does come to you.
So that's true. But don't you think that we will actually be promoting a culture of making mistakes or failing or, you know, failing being accepted by the society? Don't you think that that this word failure will actually be then more common, and then we'll have more cases of failure rather than success?
On the contrary, since we all fail, so why don't we talk about it, and why don't we, I'm not saying that we promote failure.
Yeah.
Of course, we're going to promote our success, but there's nothing wrong in failing.
Yeah.
That is what our emphasis
God
is
forbid
on.
if you do fail, there's nothing wrong in it.
Yes, you can bounce back. You can come up again.
Exactly.
We have our examples. Look at Riaz Malik Sahab. He was not what he is today, right?
Exactly.
So he must have failed somewhere along the line. You fail when you're in the army. You fail when you work for the government. You fail when you're in the private sector.
Yeah.
So failure has become a very negative connotation in this country, and people just don't talk about it. They're scared to. There's nothing wrong in failing.
Exactly.
Yeah? And you need to find, we all want to succeed, but if there are failures, we can talk about it. Don't go into depression just because you failed, just because you think log kya kahenge.
Exactly.
We have thrown that out of the window, that concept of log kya kahenge. Go do
It's your
follow
life, do
dream. It's
whatever.
your life.
Yeah.
It's your life.
Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I've actually met a man of my mindset as well, and I think that this is the rule I live by in my life as well, that it does not really matter whether I fail or succeed, because at the end of the day, it's my life, and those are my kids, and that's my family, and I know probably how to make things work. But having said that, I think that you really need to have a very realistic eye at the same time. It's not all dreamy, and it's not all very harsh as well. I think what people need to do is that people do not realize the kind of talent they possess, and they kind of venture into different things just because of the fact that they've worked out for somebody else. They think that it's going to work out for themselves as well. Sure. And there was this research article, sir, I'm going to share with you, which I studied, I think, a year or 2 years ago. And it said that there's only 1% total population who come up with original ideas or newer ideas. The rest only have to copy it perfectly. Do you think that this is the right thing to say?
You may not need to copy precisely as to what the other people are doing, but you can innovate.
Yeah.
You can have your own ideas.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Bollywood copies Hollywood.
Yeah.
Lollywood copies Bollywood.
Yeah.
But
Kareem copies Uber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why Uber bought Kareem. So look at this gentleman you mentioned about Kareem. Look
Yeah.
at this Mudassir Sheikh or Sheikha. And I initially thought that he was an Arab, but I was surprised to learn that he was a Pakistani based
Exactly.
in UAE.
Yep.
And look at his company, look at his vision.
And he did a great job.
He did a great job. I'm inspired by this senior friend of mine, the owner of Nayatel, Wahaj Siraj.
Yeah, we've had
He's
him
an
on this
amazing
show as well.
gentleman.
Exactly.
Prior to joining HEC, I was at the Ministry of Science and Technology, and he had just left before I joined in, and he had amazing concepts when I met him, and the vision that he has, and he has failed too. I will not go into his failures. He's gonna won't like me for that, but he's amazing.
Exactly, and I think that, ladies and gentlemen, over here in Pakistan, we have a lot of unsung heroes as well, and we really need to promote it that way. But sir, very quickly before I wind up, before we wrap up this segment, my first thing which I wanted to ask was that, where is this Fail Festival going to happen in 2020? What are your plans about that? And the second one is that whenever you have failed after your marriage, what was the response you got from your wife or your family? His wife is here, by the way, in the studios as well, recording. So please go ahead.
What was the first question again?
So the first question is
where we are doing the Fail Fest. Well, the next Fail Fest was supposed to be today.
Okay.
But as luck would have it, because of the weather, the extreme cold weather and the fog, it was postponed, not cancelled, but we've moved it forward to, let's say, in the next 10 days, we're going to have it at the Shaheed Benazir Bhutto Women University in Peshawar.
Wow.
And I was called by one of my scholars. She's a PhD scholar, head of the department there, Dr. Rehana Mahsood. She herself hails from Waziristan.
Wow.
And the specific reason that she said that you must come here and inspire the younger girls, it's an all-women college, university, is because all these girls belong to the tribal areas.
Yep.
And we are so motivated to go and talk to these girls because they've never been to Islamabad, they've not come to Murree, and they've never seen the snow there and things like that. So these are the kind of people that we want to go down to rather than asking them to come here to the bigger cities. Another thing what we want is we are sort of branching out to smaller cities. I feel that the younger people, we are a privileged class here in Islamabad, in Karachi, in Lahore, and Peshawar for that matter. But who's going to go to Jhelum or Nowshera or Bhai Pheru or Chicha Watni and what have you? So we've decided to go there and hold their fingers and give them an inspirational message that yes, you can do it.
And it's wonderful. So now the second one. So whenever you have failed, what was the first response you got from your wife and the family?
Okay, well, as far as my wife is concerned, I'm really thankful to her. First, I'm very thankful to my mother, actually, who's the reason that I'm sitting in front of you. She gave me the chance to go out and study and do whatever that I wanted to do in my life. I love her. She's alive, mashallah. She's 84. My Baba is alive.
Mashallah.
He's 88. And they've always allowed me to go and experiment with things that I wanted to do. I've studied in Europe, I've studied in the Far East, I've studied in the US, lived and worked abroad for 8 years, and they've given the world to me.
Wow.
Coming back to marriage, I always wanted to, I'm the only son, I have 2 sisters, alhamdulillah, happily married, settled in Karachi. I was going around like Ibn Battuta, wandering Darwish, so going to these cities and countries and making friends there and, you know, meeting new people and getting involved in their cultures and their religions. So I thought that I should come back and I should, that typical Pakistani, I'm sorry, but that kind of thing whereby I would want my mother to get me married to the girl that she would like, because at the end of the day, with all this education of 18 years and going abroad and living and settling there and working for all these years, I thought that parents could make the best decisions for us.
Exactly.
Especially when they're educated.
Thank you very much for saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer of that, and that is why I came back and I got married to this woman who my mother liked for me, my sisters approved of, and alhamdulillah, I have no regrets.
Mashallah.
I have no regrets. She's always supported me. I support her. She's going to be my next speaker in the Fail Fest. She's got her own sweet failures. Actually, they're not failures, but not the kind of success that she deserved or desired.
Yeah.
But yes, I've pushed her to go and talk to the girls and motivate them, being a housewife.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm always behind her. She's with me. She supports me.
And that's great. And ladies and gentlemen, I think that this is how things work out. Otherwise, I don't think that, you know, that Fail Fest would have been a success. Fail Fest would have been happening over here in Pakistan as well. Imagine that if one day I just go to my wife and I say that I'm going to speak about my failures, she might be like, you should actually talk about your marriage. You know, so things like that, I think that, you know, one way or the other, the only reason that we had him over here was that to show you or to prove to you that, ladies and gentlemen, failure is not a bad thing. The bad thing is not getting back up and not bouncing as well. But thank you very much, sir, for being with us. It was lovely to have you, and we're going to have you back again, inshallah, in a couple of months. And we're going to ask you more about your failure festivals. And inshallah, I would love to be a part of it. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, when we say or use the word failure, at times it is because of the fact that we did something wrong during the process. And otherwise, it's because of the fact that we didn't have the right support, that we didn't have the right system, that we didn't have the right things in the place, and then people fail, and it's not their fault. That's something which I'm going to talk about, because, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow happens to be Braille Awareness Day as well. There are a lot of people who cannot see, but then there are a lot of people who cannot even write or express their own feelings, and it's just because of the fact that we do not have a system in place. We're going to talk about that after a short break. Don't go anywhere. Good morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. For everybody who just got tuned into PTV World, you watching World this morning alongside Shahzad Khan. Earlier, ladies and gentlemen, we were actually in conversation with somebody who was very inspirational because he came across this idea, which is a wonderful idea, that failure shouldn't be a word which needs to have stigma alongside it, or it shouldn't be tabooed as well. And I think that this was such a great initiative which they have taken. There's this failure festival which is taking place in different parts of Pakistan, in different universities where they're going and letting children know that there's no harm in failing, but getting back up and bouncing back is important. But other than that, now, ladies and gentlemen, in this segment, what we've done is that obviously we do observe international days. And there are a lot of people who actually ask me a lot of times that why do you observe so many international days? So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm going to give it away today that the sole purpose behind observing these international days is to actually, in the first place, raise awareness. Other than that, it is to mobilize resources. It is to educate the masses. It is to let people know that this is something we really need to talk about, or this is something we need to care about as well. Which is why there's this very important day which we have picked up on. It was for the very first time observed in 2019 on the 4th of January last year. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, since we were talking about failures, and before going towards the break, I even mentioned that, there are failures which are man-made, and then there are failures which are natural. So natural, you cannot do anything about it. But failures which are man-made, we can always have a way around it. So imagine, ladies and gentlemen, for all of those people who were born without a sight or unfortunately lost their sight during this process of life, imagine how can they study? Imagine that do we have a system for that? Imagine do we have do we give them mediums to express their will? Do we give them their fundamental right of freedom of speech? I think that all of these things really needed to be discussed, and it's because of the fact that it's Braille Awareness Day on the 4th of January, which is tomorrow. But unfortunately, we do not have a show on Saturday. But if you're going to push it, I think we'll probably do it on Saturday and Sunday as well, only if my boss allows. But other than that, I think that this is the system we'll be talking about, how important it is, what is Braille, how does it work, how do people take advantage of it. And with so much technology coming in, do we really need to still use this obsolete Braille system? Whether is it getting obsolete or not, I think that these are the questions which we'll be asking. So for all of those people who are out there, if you have anybody who've got sight problems in your family, I think that this is the kind of segment you really need to watch, and this is the show you need to watch every day anyways. So to talk about all of this, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by an associate professor. He's an educationist himself. He's none other than Professor Dr. Amir Hanif Saab. Hello sir, Assalamu Alaikum, how are you?
Walaikum Salam, and Shahzad, I'm very fine, and thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you very much, sir. It's wonderful to have you. And ladies and gentlemen, what a wonderful gentleman he is. He's a PhD doctor. Imagine that he was born without a sight and he never lost hope and he kept on going. He went to England to study as well. I mean, he's just marvelous. So, sir, first of all, let people know who are you and how did you become a professor? How did you become a doctor?
My name, you told that people, my name is Professor Dr. Raja Amir Hanif, and I was by birth blind. And I did my master from Qatar University in history and my MPhil Punjab University,
Wow.
Lahore, and PhD Sheffield University, UK.
Sir.
And I think with the support of my parents, with the support of society, I think I got all the things which can a person imagine. I think I'm thanks to God and thanks to all people of different segments of society.
Wow. It's wonderful to have you, sir. Then let's talk about Braille, sir. Tell us a little about Braille and when did you got to know about Braille in your life?
I think Braille system is a very, very important system for the blind people because they did not know about the writings. So in 1809, Mr. Louis Braille,
Yes.
he was from France,
Yes.
and he started this system. And I think 6 dots are very important when I think which we engraved on paper.
Yep.
And I think really it's a very supportive thing. And I think with the passage of time, you are absolutely asked very right. It's obsolete, you can say, with the passage of time. But I think it has a great importance nowadays.
Yes, but which is why, sir, I think that this is why I wanted to ask you this as well, that if the system was getting obsolete, there was no reason for the United Nations to actually observe a day for Braille awareness. So that means that, Braille is still very relevant. And when we speak about relevance, how is it relevant, sir? I mean, for all of those people who do not have the power of sight, how do they communicate? Is there a system within the Braille system with which we can communicate?
Without Braille, even a blind person can't think about to know the spellings, know the in Urdu we can say, yani hijaz you can say.
Yes, sir.
We can't think about it. In Braille, we learn through spellings and through writing.
Alright.
It's a very difficult for a blind person, because if we have learned something, the touch system is a very important for blind people.
Yes, sir. And which is why, ladies and gentlemen, right now we actually have a small video to share about Braille Awareness Day as well. Go ahead, take a look at that, and when you guys will come back, we'll actually ask more about the Braille system, how does it work, and then, where I was actually talking about freedom of speech. So, ladies and gentlemen, all of these people, they need to write. I mean, I think that, there are a lot of blind people who've written a lot of books, and I think that they're very useful for other people as well, and they should always have this technology at their hands, so that they can use it and that they can let the world know that how does it actually feel to be a blind person in the first place. And not just that, I mean, whatever they've learned in their lives, why not to share their experiences? And I think that this system actually makes them or enables them to do so as well. So first this video, and then when you guys will come back, we'll ask him how does he share his thoughts with the rest of the world. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so this was a little insight of how the Braille system works. So there's 6 dots in total, and yeah, you form them into different shapes, and when the blind person who actually moves his finger or her finger onto those dots understands what it says. But before sharing this video, ladies and gentlemen, there was this one thing which I wanted to talk about, and that is that for all of those people who are blind, who cannot actually see, so that means that they cannot write. But how do they share their own experiences with the rest of the world is something where Braille comes in as well. So, sir, so you write something in Braille. How does it get converted into a normal writing so that anybody else can read it?
I think with the support of Braille Embosser,
Yes,
I think you can write not only in Braille,
Yep.
but a sighted person can see easily
Okay.
of this writing.
Wow.
And Shahzad, I think there are other sources
Okay.
of there's social media and other sources
Exactly.
are very important for in the life of blind people.
Yep.
I would like to tell you that I think in Pakistan, especially the blind people are doing well. They are in Mr. Yusuf Salim, he's a civil judge.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Asim Rauf, he was doing a very good job he's doing a very good job in PIA as a legal advisor.
Sir.
And myself and other people in doing a different jobs.
Yes, sir.
And in last days of 2019, a very important website have been developed, www.vipsvips.pk.
Okay, sir.
And I think there are some, they highlighted the achievements of the blind people in Pakistan.
Wow.
So I think things are going very positively.
I think that's great and that's reassuring as well. But sir, very quickly, I mean, for all of those parents who actually have a child who cannot see, It's very difficult. And over here in Pakistan, we do not have inclusive education where, kids of all sorts can come in, because whenever we talk about people suffering or kids actually suffering from different kind of illnesses, may it be that the child is actually autistic or, there are problems with the children, the school systems we have over here in Pakistan are not inclusive. So do we have schools which are primarily focusing on the education via the Braille system for the kids who are actually without sight?
I think there are a number of schools in different cities. In
Right.
Pakistan, they are educating in Braille,
Yep.
and they are doing a very good job. And Siddharth, I think now this is the time.
Sir.
People are really aware about the disability,
possibilities.
and I don't think so
Yep.
that this is the time people did not fed up. I think in this situation,
All right.
they must be courageous,
Yeah.
and blindness and other disabilities are not problem this specific time.
Exactly. And sir, you're very true with that too as well. Thank you very much for saying that. But one way or the other, it's just that I want to request the government, and I've been requesting again and again that, the infrastructure should actually be very inclusive for all of those people. As in, sir, whenever we go to the West, I've seen that, over there people who are actually on wheelchairs and they use public transport. They have a small button on the bus. They press it, the bus lowers down. They get in very easily via their wheelchair and they can commute easily. But other than that, sir, over here in Pakistan, we see that we do not have ramps in different buildings. We do not have Braille writings for people who actually cannot see. We do not, that's the kind of system which we need over here in Pakistan. And since we are raising awareness and since we are talking about this day, I think that there should be people thinking about making this society more inclusive rather than, taking it that, there should be a different school for people who cannot see. I know that it's a little hard, but it's not impossible. What do you say, sir?
I think very important points you have raised. One thing is very important. I think Pakistan is seriously suffering crisis in economy especially.
Exactly.
So these things are really belong to economic matters.
Yes,
So I think with the passage of time, I hope that government will do something, and definitely those things you have mentioned, government will definitely focus on that.
Yeah, and that's great. And sir, it's so good to be in conversation that I'm actually going to ask you a few personal questions as well. Do you allow me to ask you a few personal questions?
Yeah, no problem.
Because first of all, sir, have you ever written a love letter in your life?
I think so many times.
And what have you written in the love letter? If it's so many times, have you written the same letter to the same person, or have you written love letters to different people and on different occasions?
I think I did not wrote letters of a specific person 2 times. I think I did this practice on so many people.
Well, and that's great. And since the sole reason why I've actually asked you this question is that this is how important it is for people to have systems in place. Now imagine, unfortunately, if there was no Braille system and you didn't learn to write, how would have you communicated? So that was the sole reason. Imagine, it's not just work oriented, you have so many different chores to run, obviously you're looking after a house, you're looking after your kids, you're doing your job. So it's always so important to communicate. So how was it when you wrote your first love letter? How did you write it?
I had wrote that letter not in Braille.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I can use other things, especially in my typing system on computer.
Wow.
So it was a very great source for me. So this is not problem to love letter dictate to any other person. You can write this on your own basis.
Exactly, and that's what I wanted to know, sir, that there are endless possibilities for everybody out there.
Definitely.
So would you mind, for a second, if we stop talking about Braille, what are those other systems which enable people without a sight to communicate and express their will?
So especially you can use especially IT bring the great revolution in the life of the blind people.
Yeah.
Especially iPhone and other phones, Android phones and
Siri,
computer and
Alexa.
talking softwares.
Yep.
And with the help of them, we are doing each and everything a person can do.
All right, sir. So that's great, and it was so wonderful to have you over here on the show too as well. Thank you very much for joining us, Professor Saab, and more power to you and more respect coming towards you as well because of the fact that you were here with us today for all of those people who couldn't really see but have heard your voice today, and thank you very much for advocating for them. Thank you very much for advocating
It's a great
for
honor for me,
systems to be in
Siddharth. Great
place.
honor for me.
Thank you very much, sir. Jazakallah.
Thank you.
And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, this is not it. I think that it is each and everyone's responsibility to make sure that every other person you see, whether specially abled or not, that they have their free will to communicate and they have their freedom of expression and that they can do whatever they want to do in life. Because dreams, you cannot stop them. And people who are dreamers, I love them the most. Please make sure that you write to us on our Facebook fan page, which is with the name of World This Morning. On Twitter, it's World This Morning without a G. On Daily Motion and YouTube, it's World This Morning. The Fabulous is going to be at 11 p.m. tonight. But ladies and gentlemen, before wrapping up, it's Friday today, so Jummah Mubarak. And for everybody, each and everyone who's out there, please make sure that you remember me, my guest, my entire team, my cameraman, and yeah, my kids and my family and everybody out there in your prayers. Look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Good morning.